You ever wonder if a computer could actually write music with, soul? I'm not talking about just random notes, but real, moving, beautiful music? Well, let's get into it. Because the story of how AI learned to compose is this incredible journey through, centuries of musical secrets. So, to kick things off, here's a little puzzle for you. What on earth could possibly connect one of the greatest composers who ever lived with a modern artificial intelligence? The answer is pretty wild. They both use algorithms to make music. That's right, algorithms. But here's the thing. This idea of using a set of rules to create music, it didn't just pop up with computers. No, it's actually a kind of secret ingredient that's been hiding inside music for a very, very long time.
Look, when you break it down, an algorithm is really just a recipe, a set of instructions. When you follow directions from your GPS or you bake a cake, you're using an algorithm. And it turns out, composers have been using their own creative recipes for centuries.
I mean, this history of rule-based music is just fascinating. It goes way back to the 14th century with their repeating rhythms, all the way to Mozart's famous musical dice games, where literally a roll of the dice decided the next part of the song. And then you have the super strict mathematical rules of 20th century serialism. For ages, composers have been using systems to help guide their creativity.
But here's the catch. This is the really crucial part. Following a simple recipe can get you a song, sure, but it won't get you a masterpiece by Chopin. It just won't have that unique emotional fingerprint. And that is the huge leap that modern AI had to figure out how to make.
And this brings us to the real mission, the core challenge, cracking the style code. How do you teach a machine not just the basic rules of music, but the actual essence, the soul of a very specific composer? So you've got two different approaches, right? A simple algorithm can make music that's technically fine, but it's usually pretty generic, kind of lifeless. The real goal, the holy grail, is an intelligent algorithm, one that doesn't just follow rules, but actually learns them from a composer's life's work, so it can capture their one-of-a-kind creative voice. So you see, the big shift in thinking is right here. This isn't about just copying what's on the surface. It's about reverse engineering the musical DNA that made Bach, well, Bach. How did he approach a problem? What were his go-to moves? That's what a machine had to learn.
So to pull this off, you'd need a totally new kind of program. And you'd need a really special kind of mind to build it. This all led to a really amazing experiment in musical intelligence.
Okay, so let's jump to the 1980s. A composer and computer scientist named David Cope creates this groundbreaking program. He called it Experiments in Musical Intelligence, or EMI for short. And this was his attempt to answer that really big question. And the results? They were absolutely staggering. EMI started producing music that was so convincing that in listening tests, people couldn't tell the difference between the AI and the real thing. It wasn't just copying, it was creating brand new pieces in these famous styles. So, how in the world did it do it?
All right, so how did it actually work? Let's pop the hood and really get into the nuts and bolts of how MII learned to think like a composer.
The whole thing is built on this core idea called recombinancy. Now, it sounds complicated, but the concept is actually pretty simple. Think about it. The English language has only 26 letters, but with those 26 letters, we can create every book ever written. EMI does the exact same thing, but with little bits of music instead of letters. So here's the process. First, EMI just inhales a composer's work, like all of Bach's famous chorales. Second, it chops all that music up into these tiny musical words or beats. Third, and this is the genius part, it catalogs every single fragment, and it makes a note of what other fragments tended to come after it in Bach's original music. And finally, it starts stringing them back together, building new musical sentences by following the very same logic Bach used. Okay, but hold on. That's not quite enough, is it? Just sticking correct notes together doesn't automatically create a masterpiece. I mean, great music has themes. It has recurring ideas, these little motifs that tie the whole thing together. And this is where musical signatures come into play. EMI was programmed to hunt for these stylistic tells, these unique melodic patterns or chord progressions that a composer uses over and over again. You can think of it as their creative fingerprint. By finding and protecting these signatures,
EMI makes sure the new music feels genuinely authentic.
So where does this leave human creativity? You might be thinking, is the composer obsolete? Well, not at all. Actually, it's the opposite. The greatest potential for this tech might be as the ultimate composer's assistant.
Yeah, instead of a threat, this becomes this incredibly powerful creative partner. Imagine you're a composer and you're stuck. This tool could suggest what Mozart might have done in that situation, or it could offer different solutions to a tricky problem, or even take one of your ideas and show you how Bach might have developed it. It's amazing.
And that's really the big vision here. It's not about human versus machine. It's a true partnership where ideas flow back and forth so smoothly that at the end of the day, you can't even tell where the human creator ends and the machine begins. It's just creativity.
Which kind of leaves us with one last big question to chew on. When you're listening to a piece of music and it moves you and it feels just profoundly beautiful, does it really matter where it came from? Does knowing it was written by silicon instead of a person actually change its power? That's definitely something to think about.